I'm Tom Canter. I'm doing a presentation today, a little bit about our experience over the last year. We've been doing some Azure assessments. We've been sitting out and going out and talking to customers, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how we got where we're at and kind of how the conversation leads when we go through that. So that, and next. There we go. So I changed companies last year. I'm working for a company called FedEx. We're a Gold partner. We do quite a bit of this stuff. For our size, I'm integration MVP, just became one last year. It's been really great. It's really a great community. On top of that, I've been a P-seller, or a VTSP, one of the first 40 or so. Got started back in 2006. And I've been doing integration since about 1998. Started with MQ Series Integrator and worked with that for quite a while, and took some of our experience doing that a little bit before BizTalk started, and then got in BizTalk about 2004, 2005. Built the ESB with Brian Loskin, and have been doing things with that ever since. So I was looking for kind of a theme. Where was I going to go with this on this trip? And I was looking at Clemen's Twitter feed the other day, and this started out. It just struck me really interesting. So we look at the world. We tend to look at the world in like a small space. Where are we at? We're in the integration space. We're in BizTalk. We look at our current layer, where we're at, and this struck me because I have some background, and I tend to think of things as a broader picture. And you know, Clement said software developers ought to have a solid understanding one layer below them. I think that's a really good starting point. My background's a little broader. I spent 12 years in the U.S. Navy as a submarine sailor. Nuke, not a bobblehead, a bubblehead. And so a bubblehead is a submariner, basically. And on the left is the USS Bremerton. I spent about 3 years on her. On the right-hand side is my second boat, USS Billfish. That's a picture of us at the North Pole. Played cricket there. It was a good day. We did not win against the Brits, but it was pretty cool. Now, I want you to imagine for a second, this is like 1984. I'm in the South China Sea. We're about 400 feet below the surface. We're transiting from the Philippines to Singapore. We're going to have some, some off time in Singapore, about 5 days. And the way the submarine works is we have most of the submarine is on a 18-hour schedule. You sleep for 6 hours. You're up for 6 hours and on watch, and then you're 6 hours after watch. Part of the crew is on more of a 24-hour schedule. And I'm going to say the captain specifically. Gets up at 6 a.m., goes to bed at 10 at night, so on and so forth. So it's 2 a.m. in the morning. And we're sitting there talking, watching our panels. I'm at the throttleman. I'm a throttleman. Love being a throttleman. 33,000 shaft horsepower. Open, close. Just work. Next to me is reactor plant control panel. Right-hand side is electric plant control panel. Behind us is the engineer off the watch. And we're standing there, and suddenly 24 alarms go off on the reactor control panel. We only have 48. Oh my. Well, I stood up. We all stood up. Looked down. On the reactor panel, there are 30 reactor control rods. You pull them out, the reactor turns on. You push them in, the reactor turns off. Half of them were on the bottom. Bottom lights were on for half the control rods. I remember thinking very clearly, I'm dead. Needless to say, I was wrong. I'm here today. So it's now 1:02 a.m., 2:02 a.m., 2 minutes had passed. The engineer officer watch picks up the 7MC and he says, con, this is maneuvering, reads off all the alarms that we have. The roving watch standards is looking for, they open the periscopes, which look into the reactor compartment. We don't see a steam explosion. We don't see any leaks. Nothing's going wrong other than the rods being on the bottom. Not good. So about this point, did I mention the 7MC is repeated in the captain's statement? Commanding officer, Douglas S. Wright, gets on the 7MC and he says, maneuvering, con. This is Captain. I think you've blown fuse 1 VV1 on panel 14. Could you check, please? The roving watch hears that, runs over, I see him run by, pulls the fuse out, slaps a spare in, pushes it back in, everything goes away. One fuse. All right, so there we are. Great story, but something in there was really important. The commanding officer, out of a dead sleep, woke up, hearing just a few bits of words, in his own mind, troubleshot the circuitry that we were sitting there looking at in our panic, needless to say. I thought, how did he do that? Right? We all go through a lot of training. I went through quite a bit of training to become a nuke. 2 years. There are 2 submarines and an aircraft carrier in the Idaho desert. I went to one of those submarines. You're given a lot of training, and we have to learn the other watch standards jobs. I was a throttleman. I knew how to run the reactor. I knew how to run the electrical panel, right? I knew more than one layer. The captain knew enough layers where he knew how to run a crew, run a submarine, attack Russian submarines, and also how to troubleshoot that circuitry. So that became like a really strong goal for me. I thought, I need to be able to do that. I was really like that. So I continued that. And some people know me. I tend to do things a little different. So that is kind of my idea. You go one step further and you go a little better. So let's look at our typical Azure stack here. And this question has already been asked. How many people know all of this? Right? Not many. I need to go water, sorry. Not many. So it's a lot of stuff to know. I've been working on getting up to speed on this since this came out. As far as I'm concerned, this is a submarine. I have to know it. Everything inside. That's my job. So I thought about this for a while. That what is BizTalk server going to look like in 2030? Here's what we got today. By the way, you may notice that the integration block has a couple extra things in it that the rest of the drawings don't have. I think belong there. API apps, logic apps. Right? I don't think they're mobile and web. I think they're core functionality that belong there. So this is not per the standard. Okay, BizTalk 2030. What do you mean? Everything I need to do a platform level integration solution can be described as distributed components that are broken down as the individual components in Azure. Nick was great. Demonstration of that very same principle. We did not discuss this. We did not discuss this. But I thought, what else do I need? I have a message box. I have transformation engines. And I don't have to configure MSDTC. If I ever configure. But no SSO. I have ADFS, right? Of course, underneath this, there will be 20,000 connectors that connect to everything, everywhere, all the time, and ubiquitous monitoring, and so on and so forth. But, imagine that. I mean, I'm adding in at the top of the stack, I'm showing the LOB systems that are associated with this, or the SaaS systems. So why am I saying this about an Azure assessment, right? I'm thinking 15 years out, right? Where am I going to be 15 years from now? You know, what am I leading? What do I see Microsoft doing? What do I see the platform doing? You know? And going back to the everything is connected and you got to know a little more around you. Great conversation with Mick Allanson last night, and he pointed out, I was discussing a little some of these elements with him, and he said, yeah, but you know, what if people can't quite, you know, come up to that? And I said, I don't expect everybody to, but I do expect you to at least meet the first principle, one layer beyond what you're doing, right? You know, and know that deeply. Okay, so BizTalk 2030. There we go. There will be an icon refresh. All right. So I had some really kind of cool experiences I've been doing over the course of years. This is the Microsoft Store in Scottsdale, Arizona. This was October 21st, 2009. This is the night before the opening. So I did the ESB in the back of the Microsoft stores, right? I built that out, helped out in the stores. The only people that are in here are associates and the other 320 contractors building it. It was a big build. So they were painting that night. Anyway, so we got in the store, and you have to think about it. Let's take the store to the cloud. Let's do an Azure assessment on the Microsoft Store for a moment. Just a mental exercise, right? Where they have to have a point of sale system. They have a point of sale system. It has to be enterprise ready. It has to connect, interconnect. How many Microsoft stores are there today? In the hundreds. How many are there going to be in the future? Count the number of Apple stores. Plus one. All right, so we have to scale that out. What does it run on? It runs on Dynamics AX. Right now, Dynamics AX is not a SaaS solution, so you have to have a hybrid solution for that, right? But how do they track all their customers? Dynamics CRM, right? So I have a SaaS solution for all their customer solutions, for their customer integration. How does the video wall get its 1 terabyte of data delivered to the store every day? What's the cheapest transport in the world? Make out. FedEx. Put a hard drive in a box. Oh, and use UPS as your backup. All right, so when you think about this, you think, where are they going to go? They're going to grow fairly large. Are they ever going to be an IoT level scale kind of thing? Not so much, but they're going to be fairly big. They're doing a lot of data. They have to have, in the US, we got to have Mother Day content delivered to the store on Christmas. I mean, it's just like they want all kinds of stuff delivered to the store and so on and so forth. So we got to meet all of those requirements. So everything in the store, we've got to do integration. We've got to work with outside systems. The video walls are, by the way, live Windows 7, or it was Windows 7 now, I'm sure it's Windows 10, but real time, they actually render the video real time. Dedicated, synchronized UDP display system. Really amazing. Those Israelis are really smart. Okay, so we come in, we're trying to do a cloud assessment. You're all going to do this eventually, right? So assess, right? We're going to come in, talk to them, and say, what do you have? And this has been talked about a lot, but you know, you got to look at the entire stack. You got to look at everything they're doing. By the way, I'm going to find a place to do integration. There's always a place to do integration. All right. Then we're going to sit down with them and plan. Here is your stack match. Let's look at the software as a solution components. Let's build something on top of that. Oh, we don't have something for that, but you have this great on-prem solution. Great. Can it move to the cloud? Migrate. Execute the plan. Go through, build the parts, do the bits. Implement, and then support. Right? This is a typical solution approach. Who in here is in supply chain management? Right? Okay, everybody else raise your hand because you're all in supply chain management. Everything you do is about delivering product to customers in an efficient, repeatable manner. We're going to come to that in a minute. Discover, analyze, design, cost, ROI, TCO, and a roadmap. Now, we go through all these steps. We didn't have commentary, right? First one we did. We sat down, we were like done, and then we got pages of notes, and one note is crammed with screenshots and pictures and everything like that. And we get down, and the architect, the other end, says, "Oh, you guys all done?" Yeah, we're done. He said, "I have a question." That was 4 hours. So then we said, you never know what they're going to ask. This one was, well, what about security? What about this? What about so on and so forth? So we said, we have to have a free-form session at the end of every session. Got to end it and let them talk. Make sure they talk. Okay. So I was talking about my oddball experience. When I was working on a team that sold MQ Series Integrator to IBM back in 1998, we got a lot of training about what does the analysis committees think of how businesses are built. It came down to there are basically 5 core business capabilities you have to be an enterprise business. Enterprise resource management, customer resource management, supply chain management, financial management, and human resources management. Now, what's interesting about this is all businesses that are successful do one of these well. One, not 2, 1. The story goes, there's a guy at Microsoft now, a gentleman named Eric Swift, and we were in a meeting with their CEO at Neon, which is a company that no longer exists, bought by Sybase and then bought by SAP. And he asked the CEO, what do we do? And he picked 2 categories. We do these 2 well. Eric left and was at Microsoft within a month. All right. The question is then, when you're speaking to the customer as an assessment, I want to understand what they think their core pillar is, right? What do they think is important to them as a business? And again, they may not have an idea. They may or may not. If they don't have an answer, that's fine, because the first thing I ask after that is, I state it a little differently, but what I call the quanta of revenue. Quanta of revenue. What brings in the money? What is the single act you do as a business that makes a dollar or your monetary symbol of choice to come in the door? Discover that. Then you will know what their pillar is. So I did assessment. I'm going to pull 2 of them up here. This is the National Academy of Sciences, really great organization. Just because I did the assessment for them is no measure of my actual intelligence. This is a society we have in the US, and basically you are voted in. It's an honor to be a member, scientists only. And then, so I asked them about what's your quantum revenue? We don't make money. Well, okay, you're a publicly nonprofit. Why do people give you money? It's donations or grants from the federal government. They said, well, we provide a service. Basically what they do is they produce papers, right? Scholarly papers. What do you give to the scientists who come and do these papers? We don't pay them. Like, why the heck would they do this? And I suddenly dawned on me what their product is esteem. They're converting the access to be a member to an unpaid value as an esteem as being a member who has their name, who wrote a paper for the National Academy of Sciences as a member. Right? That's how you get further ahead in academia, right? What was their core engine? The CRM engine. managing the scientists, the membership, giving them a good experience, so on and so forth. So keep the core. We don't touch that core. They've written this very unique CRM experience that doesn't need anything, but it was running on-prem, right? So it's got some poor performance issues, and they had a caching implemented differently in every single different application. And we said, let's consolidate all your caching into one store. Let's get up on Azure, let's get you a Redis cache, let's get you all in one place. And they're like, we never thought of that. They didn't need any of their on-prem services. They didn't need Exchange. That wasn't a core capability, right? They should use a SaaS solution for that, right? Their communication process and everything like that, right? And they were using spreadsheets to do their internal supply chain. And we basically said a SaaS solution for you would be go to Office Max, get an account, stop keeping track of your pens and pencils via spreadsheets. But it wasn't a core capability they needed. It wasn't, they wanted to use spreadsheets, you know, and they were used to that for 20 years. That's fine. Sure, you can keep that on-prem, right? But, you know, the CTO was saying basically, I need to know how much of my data center I can move to the cloud. Suddenly it dawned on me, oh my goodness, we're in the business of emptying data centers, right? That's what we're doing. We're in the process of building the largest beer coolers in the world. Right? So the thing is, how much of the data center is going to move today? How much is going to stay on-prem? How much am I going to need to integrate with? Right? What am I going to have to build? Assess, plan, right? Execute, support. Okay. Lasers. No, we're not shooting any lasers. This is the Louisiana State Employee Retirement System, right? Every state in the United States, generally the state body has a mandated nonprofit company that basically runs their retirement systems, right? The entire state of Texas has one retirement system. I think their publicly stated funds under investment is about $11.8 billion. They're big. The other interesting thing about Texas is, you know, in 1959, Texas went from being the largest state of the union to the second largest state of the union because we brought Alaska in. Alaska was a bigger state. The Alaska legislature concerned about Texas's suddenly becoming the second largest state. They passed a bill, proposed passing a bill to split Alaska into two states in order to make Texas the third largest state in the union. All right, Texas is big. All right, so lasers, it was a different situation. So I spent a year and a half in Louisiana doing a project for Blue Cross Blue Shield down there. And it was just about 2 years after Katrina, right? Their biggest problem, one is, you know, we went through the process of what do, you know, what is a quantum of revenue that you bring in, an employee statement union. They get paid by being given new laws that change the way retirement system payments are done. That is their revenue stream. I said, what is the most important thing that you need to do every day? And they said, we have to print a check, no matter what, for every retiree every month. Every retiree. Louisiana, not a lot of rich, I mean, there's some rich people, but a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of the retirees are paycheck to paycheck. One paycheck, not good. They call their representatives. What do we use? What was our most important tool that we use? Email and phone. Okay, what is this paycheck printing system you got? Oh, well, it's an Oracle financial system, but it's got all this custom coding on top of it, and so on and so forth. And we said, you know, there's this Oracle image up in Azure. Really? So their core functionality was CRM. Again, right? Work with their customers, pay their customers, figure out how to get their checks, get their proof of registration, everything like that, and then move that to a platform as a service solution. Get them aligned with that. And the odd thing was, the phones were so important. After printing checks, being able to use the phones. They've had 2 major hurricanes through that area in the last 10 years. They missed a check. Move everything else to the SaaS solution, Office 365, right? So on and so forth. So the random questions at the end always end up, to me, being about the same, pretty much the same questions. How can we trust the cloud, right? These are actual quotes from the feedback we got post-assessment that they needed answered, right? We gave them their targets, what we were going to migrate and everything like that, and how do we currently provide Microsoft as high visibility target, and my number 1 concern. Bold was added by myself. So anyway, how many Azure security breaches have been? Has anybody heard about any Azure security breaches? I can't find any, right? Details of Azure outage history. I'm going to give you a statistic that I did in my brain when Dan did his presentation about his outage rate. 1/100,000th of a percentage point is equal to 100,000 failures on the service system. 1/100th of a thousandth of a point on his SLA. All right. Details of Azure SLA for resumption normally, details of data ownership issues. They're very concerned about that. Staff training, retraining costs, and so on and so forth, right? So my response was, this was my words. Few private enterprises could match the structure and security and operational control that implement Microsoft Security Cloud environment. Here you got it. And when you go to that, we're going to talk about that in a second, but how do they handle notifications? It's privately done. All of the Azure notifications that could occur, it is handled privately with the vendor or the partner, whoever's in the cloud, because it's their system that's been infected. It's their operational controls. It's not the stamp. This is a direct quote from the site. So we said, okay, Office 365 is nice, publicly well-known, right? This is the Office 365 SLA for the last year and a half. Currently at 99.98%. Knowing an SLA number and the percentage and what it equates to, off the top of your head, goes a long way. 99.98% is 2 hours. 2 hours a year. Is that right? Got it on my notes. Okay, so we've all encountered our service going down. I've had Central US as kind of like my core data centers I've used a lot, and we had some hiccups there and so on and so forth, and it's like, but does it ever happen worldwide? No, right? Because it's a phased out approach. They roll out the per data center change, right? In the minute one of them has a problem, they roll it back, right? If they can't identify what that cause is and fix it because it's regional, they immediately roll it back. So you're never going to have a worldwide outage because they don't roll it out worldwide in one big step. All right, bring it all together. So we start at the top of the stack. Software is a service solution, right? I identify the components that the customer has. They're not his core business, right? And if they're not on a SaaS solution, I'm going to recommend they have a SaaS solution, because they should not be investing their development and their work level in non-core capabilities, right? This isn't what makes you a business, right? Align platform as service solutions like logic apps and so on and so forth with existing solutions that are ready for migration, right? during the assessment. The comment will be, we've been thinking about upgrading this. Let's look at what it would cost you to do that up front, and then look at what your long-term year-over-year cost is once you've done that. Good question I had once. What if Microsoft suddenly changes the price of, and I'm just going to say, blob storage, right? What if they double the price of blob storage? Have you looked at the graph of what the cost of blob storage has been since the start of Azure to today? It's like, it's almost bottomed out, right? They've gotten to the point where it's flattened and they're at the bottom. And it's not going to go back up because their whole goal is make that their baseline, their underlying functionality. Okay. And for us, most of us at BizTalk, or we're all BizTalk and so on and so forth, we're going to leave their on-prem solutions on-prem. We're going to build a hybrid connectivity solution that's going to get them that on-prem capability, leave their core systems, especially if they're nervous about security, right? Leave them there for now, right? Okay, half the beer cooler is empty. That's good enough for today. That gets them to the point where they're seeing what it feels like to be in the cloud, see what happened in the cloud, see what their pricing is, get a feel for how that goes, kind of get their feet wet, and then say, let's pick a couple apps. Let's put them in a Logic app. Let's build them up. Let's do a message box and so on and so forth. So this is what we do. This is how we kind of take people through an Azure assessment. The goal is, like I said, align, implement, and then follow up. And kittens. So that's my presentation. Anybody has any questions, please? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.